Hello, and welcome to Red Hawk Spotlight. I'm Ben Berube, and I am here with the Montclair State baseball coach via Zoom due to the coronavirus, Dave Lorber. And Dave, I really appreciate you coming onto the show.
Ben, thanks so much for having me today.
Of course. And Dave, this has been a very stressful time for everybody here at Montclair. This was your very first season as a Montclair State head coach. New school, new team, and unfortunately, things didn't quite go the way you expected, especially off to a good start. So, what was your reaction when you first heard the news that the season was canceled?
I think that when I first heard the news, um, I wasn't all that shocked. I actually thought it was probably the right decision in the right time based on what our country was faced with. I think that everybody has a moment of, ooh, that stings, and especially for some of the seniors and guys that may not come back, even though the NCAA has granted everybody a year of eligibility to come back if they'd like it. Some guys, for a multitude of reasons, whether it's they have a job lined up that they can't give up, or finances from a personal standpoint, some of those players may not come back. So I think my heart first leaned towards that of, is this really how some careers are going to end? That's unfortunate, but I think it was the right decision.
And speaking of your players, I'm sure it was quite a shock to the system for all of them. So, what was the conversation like when you had to eventually talk to your players that the season was canceled?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got back from our spring break trip in Maryland on what was it, March 11th, and I met in the locker room with the guys just before we broke to go home for a few days before coming back to leave on another trip. And I told them, I don't know what's happening. I do know that I was proud of what they've put forth. And I said to them, whatever we face, it's okay. It's not going to make or break us as people, and it's not going to make or break us as a program. And I said, just make sure you get home. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Okay. Make sure you take care of those around you. Stay together, stay connected, and we'll always all be here for each other. And that was kind of the message I sent before the season got canceled. And then it kind of just started snowballing, where all of a sudden games were getting canceled. And then, certain teams from certain areas were canceling their seasons, and conferences were canceling. And we as an NJAC were one of the latest. We held out quite a bit. And then we canceled as well. And from there, what I did was I had an individual Zoom meeting with every single player on the team just to check in, see how they're doing, see what I can do for them, and kind of start making preparations for next year, because we as coaches, we never stop. So, but I think everybody has stayed pretty positive. I think, some guys are a little bit more bored than others, but at the same time, I laugh. My wife and I were joking the other day. It said we read something. It said your grandparents were called into war for World War II. You've been called to your couch to watch Netflix. Like, we can do this, So that's why we've been watching Tiger King like everyone else.
Mm. Yeah, I heard a lot of great things about that. But speaking of your family, I know you have a little girl at home. So, what has been a day like in your household, from going to work every day, and I'm sure your wife works all the time, to being home literally all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it gets interesting handling work and a 3-year-old all at the same time. I was actually doing emails while baking cookies this morning. So there's that. I was setting our fall schedule, all while trying not to burn the cookies. So, listen, you can look at it in a multitude of ways. This is probably the most my family, my wife, and my daughter have seen me in a March ever since I started dating my now wife, and obviously since I had my daughter. I'm usually on the road quite a bit, or gone. So I look at it as a positive. I'm home. I get to see my daughter grow up a little bit. Is there stressful moments? Absolutely. Is there times I want to lock myself in the office? I'm fortunate enough to have a home office. Yeah. But I think you got to balance it. And at the end of the day, we're all healthy. And that's the most important thing. it is a balancing act though. You're definitely wearing two hats because, we still work and prepare, and we're still going about business as usual on the recruiting side, even though it's not usual. We still have to prepare. I'm still preparing for the fall, and, all while trying to be a dad and a husband too.
And now going back to your players, now has there been any type of interesting story of how people are staying motivated throughout this time, especially for juniors, seniors, like anyone who's willing to come back? Like how are they staying motivated?
Yeah, I actually, I found it fun when we were doing the conversations with the guys one-on-one that the seniors kind of all said that they'd all talk to each other, and they all wanted to kind of come back and continue what we were doing. So to hear that and hear that they had built that bond and that this team had built that bond together was a special thing. That to me is more important than the wins and losses. And thankfully, we had more wins than losses this year, and we were just coming off, knocking off the top 24 team in the country, Cortland, in a doubleheader down in Maryland. But knowing that the culture and the team was getting better every day and they were coming together, that was a good thing. And then, I FaceTime one of my guys. He was out playing catch with his dad while we were having a Zoom meeting about his future. And so that was kind of cool to see him doing that. And that's kind of one of the cool things about, I think, our team and building that family culture is I think those guys are staying connected. We just had an advising meeting with our academic support. We had like 30 of our guys on the call getting ready for next year, and they were all joking around before the call. And so it was pretty fun to see.
Now, I know you have mentioned multiple times about building a culture off the field as well as a culture on the field. Now, for a lot of managers, coaches, that's an extremely hard thing to do. So what have you done to try to build that culture here at MSU?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the buzzword is culture and how do you build it and everything. The biggest thing is you have to live it yourself every day. You have to show that your guys, you care about them. All right. You got to show that you're going to get them better. You got to show that you're all in for them. So that's what I try to do. And then I try to overload them with communication, making sure that they know that I'm always here. Anything they need, big, small, anywhere in between, that I'm available to them. And as we do that and we have this level-headedness and positive outlook, no matter what the situation may be, guys kind of look at you and go, okay, well, maybe we should reflect that a little bit more in how we act. So I think it's about modeling the behavior you want, being a positive influence. I always say too, it's all about how we respond to situations and information that we receive. And it's just about moving forward. Everything has a consequence, good and bad. You just have to accept it. You have to grow from it, learn from it, and move forward. And so, I try to do that to build our culture. But, if you don't care about your guys and they don't trust you, you'll never get anywhere. And then on the flip side, you want to develop them. And once you can do those three things, then you're starting to build the family aspect.
That's like really, really cool to see, like going into detail of like how you build that culture. Like that's really, really cool to see. And now going back like to the start of the season, you guys had an 8-4 start, and it was definitely a lot better start than compared to last season. What were some of the highlights and takeaways from that 8-4 start?
For me, it was about watching over 12 games, our continued growth as an offensive team, as a base running team, as a pitching team, as a defensive team. And I told the guys in the beginning, we were on a real baseball field one day to scrimmage Raritan Valley Community College before we played our first game against Catholic. So we haven't been on a real baseball field. And I told the guys constantly, I said, don't you worry. I said, we'll be a different team, right, in January, then we'll be in February, then we'll be in March, then we'll be in April, and then hopefully we're playing championship baseball, come April into May. And so to watch kind of the transformation of the change of what we as a coaching staff did in a short period of time with these guys, whether it was cultural, whether it was physical changes, to watch these guys start to figure it out a little bit and start to get rolling was fun. It's a shame that it got halted, but I give the guys a lot of credit because they bought in pretty quickly to what we were asking them to do. And even the guys that may have been a little bit behind buying in, we're starting to see some of the fruits of their labor, of the changes paying off. So that was really awesome. I was really happy to kind of see that. So it was a really, really great season, as hard as that is to say, because it's cut short. 8-4, you beat a top 25 team, you beat Catholic, who I think is right there in the mix. You go down and play Ferrum tough for 4 games. It was fun. And the only shame of it is you don't see how it kind of plays out in conference.
Now I want to take it back a little bit to like your history. And you actually played baseball at Central Connecticut State. And at any point, like playing for them or playing at Brookdale Community College, did you want to become a coach like through those experiences as a player in college?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my path has taken me a lot of different ways. I did start at Brookdale Community College here in New Jersey under Johnny Johnson, who's still the head coach there, and actually John Wells, who's my current assistant coach here at Montclair State. He was the assistant coach also at Brookdale. So I played for John back in the day, and now I get to be his boss. So that's kind of a fun little thing too. But I played there. Then I went to West Virginia actually, and played there for the fall before transferring to Central. And what's great about that is my senior year at Central, John Wells, my current assistant coach, started a travel organization called Baseball U. And Baseball U has now grown to be one of the largest travel organizations on the Northeast, corridor. And he asked me, would I be interested in helping him? And I said, yeah, sure. Let me help out. And so I started coaching back with Wellesley my senior year of high school. I'm sorry, senior year of college. During that time, I also went back to help out at Brookdale as soon as I started coaching. I didn't really know if I wanted to coach. In fact, I was signed up to go to the NYPD. I was all done into the academy for the NYPD for the January academy, just kind of helping out Wellesley with Baseball U, helping out at Brookdale in the fall, when a guy named Matt Midkiff, who is now the head coach at Swarthmore College, gave me a call, and we talked, and he offered me a job at Eastern University. So the job started in December, and the academy was in January. So I postponed the academy, and over a decade later, here we are.
So I'm curious because you seem like you have a real desire to help people, especially college students want to mature and grow. And pursuing to be a police officer has its own benefits in terms of helping people, mature people. Like, what was it specifically about coaching baseball that really changed your mind of like maybe being a police officer to like, I want to coach?
What really shifted me was the relationships that you build with the players, the relationships you build with the other coaches, that I said, this is what I want to do as a profession. I value that too much. To me, I looked at it like, why leave the game that gave me so much if I can make a living out of it? And that was the toughest thing, was figuring out how I can make a living out of it. That's the real question when you're first starting out coaching. I remember at Eastern, I think I was making $4,000 or $5,000 a year. I was working at Outback Steakhouse to survive at night. And I rented a 1-bedroom apartment from a guy. He lived in the living room. I lived in the bedroom. And that's how I survived coaching for the first 2 years.
Wow, that must have been, I can't imagine, like that's just so hard like, to find, like to maintain a lifestyle like that. Like,
you go all in.
What?
You go all in, you bet on yourself a little bit, you try it, and you're better off for those experiences. From there, I went on to Felician College in North Jersey and was there for a year. And then I took a shot on a volunteer job, no paid job at Stony Brook, and I was there for a season. I was fortunate. Those guys were great. I was making no money there, just helping out with camps. And then I went to, George Washington University as my first full-time job. So you're looking at basically like 5 years of part-time work to even get a full-time job before I really, even had benefits. And even then I wasn't making a lot of money. So it is a grind of a career. I would tell anyone who's interested in it, it's very rewarding. It's not lucrative, but it's rewarding. And you really have to figure out early how you're going to survive and make it work. And but when you do, and you can get through these moments, and your happiness comes from serving other people and being around the game and teaching and learning. And that's where you're rich.
Dave, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode.
Ben, thanks.
I'm Ben Berube from Red Hawk Spotlight.